to get a sense of just how deep trenches are. If we take the height of Mount Everest, we would still have about a mile of water above us before we get to the ocean surface. If the deepest place on Earth isn't empty, but instead some hidden world is breathing in the darkness down there, then what? Just imagine a place where sunlight has never reached, where the pressure is so extreme that a human body would be crushed in a moment, where the temperature is close to freezing. And yet, if a camera suddenly captures creatures no scientist has ever even imagined, what would that really mean? In 2019, explorer Victor Vesco climbed into a specially designed submersible and descended to the deepest point of the Mariana Trench known as Challenger Deep. This was not a normal journey. Nearly 7 miles down into a world of the ocean where humans have reached only a handful of times in history. Scientists believe they would find nothing but empty ground, mud, and maybe a few tiny organisms. But when the cameras turned on, the footage that came out shook the entire understanding of science. The most frightening part is this. The camera may have only seen the beginning, and the real mystery could still be hiding in the endless darkness. Before we go deeper into the details, make sure you subscribe to the channel so you don't miss what comes next. The year was 2019 when Victor Vescovo made a decision that alone is enough to send chills down your spine. He sat inside a specially built submersible and began his descent toward Earth's deepest scar, the Mariana Trench. This wasn't just a dive. It was like stepping straight into a zone of death. At first, everything feels normal. But as the submersible sinks deeper, the light slowly starts to disappear. Within minutes, a thick darkness surrounds everything so completely that you can't even see your own hand. Now there's only the faint sound of machines and a single human sitting inside completely alone. This journey lasts nearly 4 hours. With every meter, the pressure keeps rising so extreme that it's beyond what a human mind can truly imagine. By the time it reaches the bottom, the pressure crosses over 16,000 pounds per square inch. That means if the submersible makes even the smallest mistake, a human body could be destroyed in a second. Outside, the temperature is almost freezing, and inside the person knows they are going to a place where rescue is simply impossible. At 35,853 feet, nearly 7 miles deep, when the sub finally touches the ocean floor, it's not just a record. It's the moment where humanity crosses its limits. Down here, there is no sound, no light, no guarantee of life, just a silent, dangerous world that constantly reminds you that you are standing in the most unknown and most terrifying part of this planet. Now, let's understand what the Mariana Trench actually is and why it is called the most dangerous place on Earth. This is not just an ordinary trench, but a subduction zone, meaning the Pacific tectonic plate is slowly sinking beneath the Mariana plate. This process has been happening for millions of years, and because of it, a depth has formed in Earth's crust that goes beyond human understanding. If you want to imagine its true depth, here's a simple way. If you place the world's tallest mountain, Mount Everest, inside this trench, even its peak would still remain underwater by almost a mile. Just think about that kind of depth. Now, let's talk about the conditions down there. The pressure is so extreme that it goes beyond 1,000 atmospheres, meaning about 1,000 times the pressure we feel on land. In simple terms, it's like 16,000 pounds of weight pressing on every single inch. A human body wouldn't survive even a second there. And it's not just pressure. The darkness is equally deadly. Sunlight disappears after around 3,300 feet, and the Mariana Trench is almost 10 times deeper than that. That means for billions of years, no light has ever reached there. The entire world is pitch black, so dark that it doesn't matter whether your eyes are open or closed. Now think about it. Where there is no light, there are no plants. And where there are no plants, there is no food. Oxygen is extremely limited, and whatever little food exists comes from above. Dead organisms slowly falling down, sometimes taking days to reach the bottom. Old scientific beliefs. Today we know that life can exist in the deep ocean. But earlier scientists believed the exact opposite. They clearly said that in places like the Mariana Trench, life was simply impossible. The reason also felt very obvious. Such extreme pressure, such freezing temperatures, complete darkness, and almost no proper source of food. Looking at all this, it seemed clear that nothing could survive there. In the 1800s, when scientists first tried to collect samples from the deep sea, the equipment they sent down often came back empty. Sometimes they would only find mud or sediment, but there was no solid proof that any complex life existed down there. This only made scientists more confident in their belief that the deep ocean was just a barren, lifeless zone. Then in 1960, a major experiment changed everything. A submersible called Berescoff Trias carried two men, Don Walsh and Jack Peard, all the way down to Challenger Deep. They claimed that they saw some small living creatures at the bottom, but the technology at that time was very limited. The cameras couldn't record clear footage. Visibility was extremely poor, and because of that, their observations could not be fully proven. That is why, for many years after that, the scientific community continued to believe that life at such extreme depths of the ocean practically does not exist. In people's minds, there was only one image: a dark, empty, and silent underwater desert, a place where there was absolutely no sign of life. Technology changes everything. After 1970, technology slowly started to change, and this shift began to shape the way scientists were thinking. Earlier, going into the deep ocean was almost impossible. But now, new tools started to appear. IOVs, meaning remotely operated vehicles, and stronger submersibles that could go down and explore on their own instead of humans. These machines could handle extreme pressure, carry cameras, and even collect samples from the ocean floor. Gradually, these devices started descending into the deep sea, and from there, clues began to emerge that hinted the story might be very different. Then came the year 1977, which gave a huge shock to the world of science. That year, scientists discovered hydrothermal vents in the deep ocean, places on the ocean floor where extremely hot water and minerals were coming out almost like underwater volcanoes. The most surprising part wasn't just the discovery of the vents. It was what surrounded them. Around these vents, a complete ecosystem was found. Living creatures were there growing, forming a full food chain, and all of this was happening without any sunlight. This is where a new concept came into the picture: chemosynthesis. That means these organisms don't depend on sunlight for energy, but instead create energy from chemicals to survive. Until then, scientists believed that life depended only on sunlight. But this discovery broke that belief. It showed that life can exist even in places where light has never reached. But still, one big question remained. All these discoveries were limited to depths of around 20,000 to 25,000 feet. What exists even deeper, especially in the deepest part of the Mariana Trench, the Hadal Zone, was still a mystery. Technology was not fully ready to reach that level. And then came the moment that changed everything. In 2019, Victor Vesco launched a mission called the 5 Deeps Expedition. The goal was simple: to reach the deepest point of every ocean on Earth. But the biggest challenge of this mission was the deepest part of the Mariana Trench, Challenger Deep. This time, the difference wasn't just human courage. The real difference was technology. Vesco had a special submersible called DSV Limiting Factor, designed specifically to withstand the full pressure of the ocean's deepest depths. Compared to earlier submersibles, it was stronger, safer, and most importantly, far more advanced. But the real game share was its camera system. This time, the cameras were not just there to guess what might be down there, but to actually see it clearly. High-definition 4K imaging capable of recording even the smallest details in complete darkness. When the submersible reached depths of more than 33,000 feet, it didn't just go once. It made multiple dives. Each time the cameras recorded for hours slowly, hundreds of hours of footage were collected. Footage that no human had ever seen before. This was the turning point. Earlier, the deep ocean was based on assumptions and incomplete reports. But now, for the first time, scientists had real visual proof. There was no need to guess anymore. Now they could see with their own eyes what was actually happening down there. And this is where the real shock begins, because what those cameras captured was something no one had ever expected. First shock: abundance of life. And then came the first shock, the biggest one, the most unbelievable one. Scientists were fully convinced that even if life existed at such extreme depths, it would be very rare. Maybe 1 or 2 tiny organisms scattered across a huge area just somehow trying to survive. In other words, they imagined a barren, empty ocean floor, a silent place with nothing really happening. But when in the 2019 mission, Victor Vesco's submersible cameras reached the bottom of the Mariana Trench and started recording, what they saw changed everything. Wherever the camera looked on the seafloor, there was life everywhere. The first creatures to appear were amphipods, small shrimp-like animals. But small was just a name. As soon as scientists dropped bait, these amphipods rushed in huge groups toward it. Their numbers were so massive that under the camera light, they looked like a moving cloud in the water. There was movement everywhere, activity everywhere. It didn't feel at all like a place where life was supposed to be impossible. Then the cameras caught sea cucumbers, strange creatures that looked like soft marine vegetables. They were calmly crawling across the ocean floor, searching for food in the mud, just like their relatives do in shallow waters. No panic, no struggle. Everything looked completely normal. The most surprising part was that these creatures were not just alive. They were actively living. Their behavior showed that this environment was completely normal for them. That means the place which was once believed to be an empty, lifeless desert turned out to be a fully active ecosystem. And this was the moment when scientists realized maybe we haven't understood this planet properly yet. The first shock was that there was a lot of life. But the real surprise came when scientists looked closely and saw how diverse that life actually was. On the floor of the Mariana Trench, it wasn't just one or two species. There were many different kinds of organisms living together, almost like a complete city had formed. Even among amphipods, several different types were seen. Some were thin, some were bulkier, some swam fast, while others stayed close to the seabed. Each had its own way of feeding and surviving. The sea cucumbers were also not all the same. Some slowly crawled and fed on sediment, while others moved differently as if each had its own role in the system. Then came the appearance of snailfish. Strange-looking fish with slightly transparent jello-like bodies. They were swimming comfortably at such extreme depths as if this was their everyday environment. Along with them, polyat worms, isopods, and many other small and large organisms were also seen. Creatures that had never been clearly recorded at this depth before. The most important thing was that these organisms were not just existing separately. They were connected to each other. A complete food web was functioning here. Some were scavengers feeding on dead material. Some were filter feeders extracting nutrients from the water. And some were predators hunting smaller organisms. This wasn't a simple system where few creatures were barely surviving. This was a complex ecosystem where every organism had its own role, its own place, and its own importance. And this was the most shocking part for scientists because such an organized and balanced ecosystem in such extreme conditions was completely beyond their expectations. Now came the third shock, and this one was perhaps the strangest of all. Scientists believed that if life existed at such depths, it would be extremely slow, moving very little to conserve energy, almost as if it were half asleep. But when the Mariana Trench footage was studied closely, what appeared was a complete opposite. Amphipods were not just drifting around. They were moving fast, and the moment they detected food, they attacked it in groups. There was aggressive feeding behavior, clear competition, as if each one was trying to grab food as quickly as possible. This didn't look like creatures struggling to survive. It looked like active scavengers or even predators. The fish, like snailfish, were also swimming in a completely normal way. No slow motion, no laziness. Their movement was smooth, controlled, just like fish swimming in shallow waters. The most surprising thing was that their metabolism, the internal energy activity of their bodies, also seemed active. Earlier, scientists believed that in such extreme conditions, organisms would slow down their biological processes. But nothing like that was seen here. This means these creatures were not just surviving. They were thriving. They were living just like organisms do in any normal ecosystem, searching for food, moving freely, reacting to their surroundings. And that was a point where scientists finally understood this environment may be extreme for us, but for these creatures, it is a completely normal world. Giant creatures and unknown shadows on the floor of the Mariana Trench. The creatures that were seen were not just present in large numbers. Their size was also much bigger than expected. Amphipods, which we usually think of as tiny shrimp-like creatures, were found here reaching lengths of 6 to 8 inches. That means they were several times bigger than their relatives found in shallow waters. Then there were snailfish. These fish were not small either, around 8 to 10 in long with a complete body structure, fins, and smooth movement. Everything perfectly developed at such extreme depth under such intense pressure. The existence of such complex and relatively large organisms was shocking on its own. But the real fear starts from here because the camera only showed what was inside its light. Many times in the footage, the seafloor mud suddenly seemed to shift strongly as if something large had passed through, but nothing clearly appeared on camera. In several shots, strange shadows appeared at the edge of the light, some moving, some disappearing. They were large enough that they didn't match the size of small amphipods or fish. It felt like something else was there, just slightly beyond the reach of the camera. And this was not limited to the camera alone. Some sonar readings, sound-based detection, also showed signals that didn't match any known species. Normally, these are ignored as machine errors or geological disturbances. But now that it's clear that complex life exists even at such extreme depths, this question becomes much bigger. Is it possible that something else is down there? Something larger that has still remained hidden from human eyes? Because there is also a logic that larger organisms have an advantage in storing energy. They can survive longer without food, and they can prey on smaller creatures. That means if 8 to 10-inch creatures can live there comfortably, then what is the limit? 1 foot, 2 feet, or even bigger? The most frightening part is not that we found something strange, but that maybe we haven't even seen the real world down there yet. What appeared on camera is just a small part, and the remaining darkness still holds secrets that we can only imagine. Now comes the biggest question. How do these creatures even survive at such depth under such pressure where a human cannot survive even for a second? These organisms are moving, feeding, and living normally. First, understand the role of pressure in the Mariana Trench. The pressure is so extreme that it's beyond human imagination. But why is it not deadly for these creatures? The answer is quite interesting. Their bodies are mostly made of water, and water is something that does not compress easily. This means the pressure inside and outside their body stays almost equal, because